The very first step of our 7-step model that Cisco gives us for network troubleshooting is to clearly define a problem. And when we're defining a problem, we're trying to understand the scope of the problem. How widespread is the problem? Who is it impacting? Does it happen all the time? What caused it? And we're going to start to gather information about that. But let's pause for a moment and think about how we define the problem. First, the problem report comes in. Maybe we have a formalized help desk, and the problem comes into the help desk. And it's great if we can verify the problem. It's easier to fix something if we can see it happening. It reminds me of when I take my car into the mechanic. This has happened on more than one occasion. My car or my wife's car, it'll be making some noise. And I take it into the mechanic and say, all right, can you fix this noise? Sure. Can you let me hear it? And I try to reproduce it, and I'm not able to reproduce the noise. And it makes it kind of hard for them to fix something that they cannot hear, they cannot observe. Same thing for us. It's good if we're able to verify the problem. And then we're going to open a trouble ticket. If that's the kind of system we use, we open a trouble ticket. And by opening a trouble ticket, that means that there's some accountability. We're going to be able to close the trouble ticket eventually once the end user agrees that the problem has been resolved. And when we look at this ticket, in larger organizations, there are different departments that take care of different aspects of the network. When I used to work down at Walt Disney World in Florida, I was part of the department that took care of the backbone. We took care of the routers that interconnected the theme parks and got us out to the other Disney properties and got us out to the internet. There was an entirely different division that took care of the Cisco Catalyst switches in the buildings. There were thousands of Catalyst switches, and there are actually hundreds of routers. We took care of the routers, they took care of the switches, and sometimes when we needed to maybe change a VLAN setting on a switch, we did not have permission to do that. We would have to escalate the problem. We would have to coordinate with that other department, and they could do the switch configuration for us. Maybe it's a situation like that for you, where you need to contact the appropriate person or personnel to get that problem addressed. Once we do have a clear definition of that problem, we've got it recorded in our ticket, the next thing we want to do is to gather information around that problem. How are we going to gather information? What are we going to be interrogating? Are we going to be asking the end user that reported the issue? Or are we going to be asking them questions about how often does it occur? When did it start occurring? How widespread is it? And what exactly do we want to gather information from? The targets, it might be, we might say, okay, router R1, I want to give some show commands there. Maybe the adaptive security appliance, I want to give some commands there and get some information there. Maybe I'm going to look at my syslog server. There are different places from which we can glean information. And then we decide, all right, what am I going to use to collect this information? It might simply be show commands. Maybe it's a laptop running a packet capture utility like Wireshark, but we're going to assemble our toolkit, whatever it is, and then we go out and we start gathering information. Again, maybe we don't have permission to access certain devices. In that case, we need to coordinate. We might need to escalate this and work with other people within the company that do have access to the equipment we need access to. And then we start collecting data. Once we collect the data, the next step is we want to start analyzing all this data that we've collected. We've gathered the information. Now we need to start interpreting it. We need to start comparing it against baseline information. Hopefully we've got good documentation of our network. We've got design documentation. We know how things are supposed to be set up. We've also got baseline information. A baseline tells us how the network behaves during the good times. It kind of reminds me of when my oldest daughter was young. She had a sore throat, and my wife asked me, can you look at her throat and see if it looks bad? You see, the problem was, I didn't know what a healthy throat looked like. I'm like, sure, dear. And I get the flashlight and I'm peeking around in the throat, and I didn't know. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. I didn't have a baseline. Same thing with the network. If we're looking at show command output and we're looking at this CPU utilization or this memory utilization, is that a good number or a bad number? It's kind of hard to tell if you don't have a good baseline to compare it with. And oftentimes, very often in my case, I've had to do research. I see data that I'm not sure how to interpret. I'm not sure what this parameter means. I'm getting a high processor utilization on this process. I don't know what that process does. We could research that to find it out. But over time, we're going to build a bigger experience database in our own brains, and we're going to be able to rely on that experience.